My name is Emily Counts. I'm the head of school and lead guide at Rhyme and Reason Academy. I teach in the class and I take care of everything else too. Please ask questions. You can put them in the chat as we go along, and then I'll answer them at the end. And then we'll also have like a live Q&A at the end as well. Those questions are usually really helpful. They help me understand how I can do these presentations better in the future. What did I not tell you? What do you need to know still? And they make the discussion and just experience better for everybody. So please put your questions in the chat or ask them at the end. Did you know that Montessori education is the second most common method of education in the entire world? Second most. I bet you could think of what the first most common is. Despite being the second most common method of education, it's not particularly well understood by anybody who isn't like in it. So people like me who teach at a school. The most common method is formally called the Prussian method, and it's often less kindly called the factory model. This can be used at any kind of school, public, private, Christian schools, all kinds of schools use this method. And it's based on a structured, teacher-led approach where children move through a set of curriculum at the same pace as their same age peers. Lessons are delivered to the whole class by the teacher, usually at the front of the class, and the children are at nice little desks. And students complete assignments and take tests to measure their progress. Conventional schools are organized by this same age grade level, with children as a group advancing each year with the rest of their same age peers. I think especially today, it's not really based on mastery. I know in the past, sometimes children would be held back, but really that's becoming less and less common. So really, they're just moving children through. The focus is on meeting these standardized benchmarks with the teachers directing and the students following this fixed timetable. If you go from one public school in one district to another public school in another district, they're going to get basically the same thing, right? Where I grew up in Massachusetts, all seventh graders learned geometry. All first graders learned double-digit addition. So it's going to be really consistent from school to school and with these entire groups of children. Then we have Montessori education. The Montessori method is named after Maria Montessori. That's where the name comes from. It is the only method of education based on the scientific method. Maria Montessori began her work with children in 1907. And she approached education as a scientist. So this looks like she observed and documented the behaviors and developmental patterns of children. She formed hypotheses about the children's developmental needs. She designed materials and she created educational environments to test the hypotheses, refined, reiterated, kept testing based on the evidence she got back from the children's responses. And she discarded approaches that didn't work, regardless of the conventional wisdom. She was revolutionary then, and I think the method is still revolutionary today in her willingness to abandon customs and beliefs when evidence contradicted them. She followed the data, not tradition. At Rhyme and Reason Academy, we follow her scientific methods and principles. We've tried to create a classroom where children thrive, and that's what makes us a Montessori school. We try to do what she taught teachers to do. If I was going to absolutely distill the core differences between our conventional models and the Montessori model, the conventional model is about transferring as much academic information from the adult to the child as they can, right? It's sort of a fire hose approach. They'll get some things, but it's not actually expected that the children learn everything that they're getting when they go through conventional school. If you were to ask somebody at, just say, your local public school, what the purpose of education is, why are we doing this? I think you'd get a lot of different answers. You might hear something about job prep or college prep or middle school prep. You might hear things about, we need to teach the children a common core of knowledge. They all need to know things about history. They all need to know math. They all need to know how to read. So we're just making sure that every student has like a standard set of skills. And then other people may have, additional ideas depending on the kind of school. So maybe at a Christian school, they would have additional things that they thought about. Montessori has a very clear vision. The purpose of education is to help each individual child. It's to help Johnny grow up into a happy, healthy, flourishing adult. We want each child to go to their fullest potential. So it's about each child reaching their fullest potential. Whether that is them becoming the next Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, who are Montessori alumni, so is Taylor Swift, or becoming the best butcher, baker, or candlestick maker that they can be. It's not about a particular job focus. It's not college prep. It's life prep. We want them to be ready for whatever they want to do because we don't know what the future holds. We don't know what they need to be prepared for. So we want them to be prepared holistically. I would like to share with you a very short video. It's one of my favorite videos of a Montessori environment ever. It's called Hazel Sets the Table. I'm going to stop this sharing. Hazardous, I know, after our snafus at the beginning. Okay, here we go. This girl, her name is Hazel. She's a 2.5-year-old, soon to be entering the primary classroom. And I'll have some more discussion after.
A Montessori teacher requires a special transformation. It's really a kind of transformation in the way she sees children.
Okay. Who is going to help me to set the table?
We have been trained or conditioned by society to see children in a certain way. And there is a different way to see children that needs to get rid of preconceived ideas about childhood, about certain things about we do about judgment, the child, criticizing the child, or looking at the child as someone inferior or someone small.
I know I am here to help you. I am here to help you, Diuna. I am very happy to help you. Sit down and wait for me. Okay, thank you, Barbara.
We are waiting to Hazel. Can you sit down and wait for Hazel? Alice, do you want to sing a song?
Yes.
Okay.
I sing.
Okay.
Twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
It's like taking veils from the eyes of people, because it's like changing a paradigm, like a mental paradigm. You have been always thinking that children are a certain way, and then you realize, no, these children are powerful. These children have something in themselves that we do not know.
So I love that video. I've watched it so many times and it actually makes me teary every time I see it. Hazel's 2.5 years old. Look at what she can do. Isn't that beautiful? Where is she going to be next year and the year after? What kind of person is Hazel going to be as an adult if she already can feel and know for a fact at 2.5 that she's capable? This is what Montessori does. Montessori shows children in a way that they can understand, that they can feel to their bones, that they can do whatever they set their minds to. We help them to become independent. At her stage, we're going to help her become independent physically. She can pour her own water. She can put on her own Crocs. And as they get older, we're going to help them develop intellectual independence and other kinds of independence as well. I won't get into that. That will be a totally different talk. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm going to keep going with the slideshow, but what you can see with Hazel is the vision that every Montessori teacher has for their children at whatever age and stage is developmentally appropriate. I hope for that for a 2.5-year-old. I hope for greater things from an older child. Wonderful. Good. It's working. Okay, so that is our core difference. Now I'm going to get into some of these nuts and bolts of the differences. We have the broad picture, we have the vision, we have our definitions, and now we can move forward with how we do this. Okay, if you walk into a conventional classroom, it's going to look very familiar. You know these classrooms almost certainly because it's the most common method of education. It's what effectively all public schools do, all private schools with some variation. But what does the scientific method of education for human flourishing look like? Those are a lot of highfalutin words. So how do we actually do this? What are you going to see that makes these methods different? I'm going to start and just compare and contrast conventional and Montessori. So in a conventional classroom, you're going to have the one-size-fits-all curriculum. Each child in the same grade is expected to learn effectively the same material at effectively the same pace. You're going to have fixed time for each subject. Every time the bell rings, it's time to switch topics, whether the child's ready or not. The child really has no say in how they're going to spend their academic hours. And it's going to be whole class instruction. One teacher lectures to the entire class at once. In Montessori, we're going to have really personalized learning. The children are progressing at their own paces, and we're going to ensure that they have true mastery before moving forward. So if a child needs more time to master reading, we give them more time. If they need less time to master addition, okay, cool, great, let's go to multiplication. We do addition, multiplication, subtraction, division. That's the order we go in. We have uninterrupted work periods. These are long stretches of time that allow the children to deeply focus. There's going to be 3 hours every morning and 2 hours every afternoon. That's 5 hours every day that the children get to choose their own work. They get to really engage with things. And then the teacher is going to give individual or very small group lessons. In my class, I'll give, 1 child, 2 children. That's about it. It's going to be 2 children who are going to work together afterwards. They're at the same ability level. They're ready for the same thing. And they're going to, maybe do that activity in a playful way together. So that's when I would do a small group. And I'm always trying to assess that they're actually ready. For our classroom experience, in a conventional classroom, the child's experience is going to be with children who are about your same age, within, 1 year span. Some will be a little older, some will be a little younger, but you're not going to have 3 and 6-year-olds in the same classroom. You're not going to have 7 and 12-year-olds in the same classroom. You will have those in Montessori classrooms. You will have mixed age classrooms. I'll get to that next. Worksheets and tests. These are going to be often printouts from the teacher in some variety that the children work through. Those worksheets might be taken home for practice. It's going to focus on memorization of algorithms and procedures. And generally, it's only going to be worried about until the next test. So after that test, you demonstrate your mastery, and then we move on. There's not as much building and integration in the curriculum. The children are sitting at desks in younger classrooms. Sometimes there'll be tables with a couple children together, but often assigned seats, and you're certainly not going to be able to walk around the classroom during the lesson or, get a floor mat and work on the floor. You're not going to be able to walk across the room while you're doing an activity, let alone wander. And the classroom is going to be primarily silent, at least from the children's perspective. The social interactions between children are discouraged because if 2 children are talking, then the other children can't hear the teacher. So these 2 children talking takes away from the experience of the others. And that's the experience that I had when I was in school. I was moved to a lot of different seats because I was a very chatty student. So I never got to sit next to my friends. This is very different from the Montessori experience. We have mixed age classrooms. So they're going to be 3-year groupings. A grade, so to speak, in Montessori is 3 years long. It's 3 to 6-year-olds, 6 to 9-year-olds, 9 to 12-year-olds. Sometimes some schools will have the entire elementary together for 6 to 12-year-olds. You're going to have hands-on learning. So this is going to be lots of those materials. If you've seen Montessori in pictures, you're going to see the stuff. There's lots of stuff in a Montessori classroom. And these are for the children to learn from. The materials are often self-correcting, and there are other elements of them that Maria Montessori designed to make them really optimal for children's learning. You can't really teach things directly to a 3-year-old, but a 3-year-old likes to play. So you give them materials that they can play with, and they will learn from those materials in a way that a lecture would not work. The children are able to move around the classroom. They can get a floor mat. They can work on the floor. You see 2 children here just reading a book on the carpet. That's fine. They can move table to table throughout the day. They can sit with classmates. They can talk with classmates. There's a cooperation and collaboration and games amongst the children throughout the day. And because I'm doing those one-on-one lessons, I only have to have that one child in front of me hear me or, see me. I don't have to have the entire class watch me give the lesson. So those 2 children over there playing a memory game and laughing does not detract from other children. So that's the experience in the classroom. Our motivation and growth. In conventional schools, there's minimal real world application. It's often disconnected from real life skills. You're doing the worksheet to complete the worksheet. That's why you're doing the worksheet. I remember being a student at school and asking, why do we need to know this? And the answer was, so you'll be ready for college. That's not a real world application. That's just another academic application. For testing, there's lots of testing. There's quizzes, tests, there's the state standardized tests on top of your just regular test. They're very formal, right? And they're graded. So you can quantitatively measure where a child is at in relation to their peers. But the class will continue regardless of their mastery level. If a student fails a test, they still have to take the next test. If a student fails a test, they still have to get the next lesson. The testing doesn't inform the education. It informs the child of how much they don't know as they move forward. It's kind of silly when you think about it in that perspective. There's usually external discipline. So there's behavior management through rewards, sticker charts, ice cream parties, or punishments, detention, extra homework, those sorts of things. And then the emphasis is on what can be tested at the detriment of other skills that most of us hope for our children to have. So I would like my son to be kind. I would like him to get along with other children. I would like him to be independent. Those are things that I value in the development of my son. Like I really love him to have those things. You can't measure kindness, right? You can't say he got a 82 in kindness this term. That's a weird thing. So often what happens is because these things cannot be measured, they aren't taught. In our classrooms, we are striving for independence. We want them to learn practical life skills. And those practical life skills are going to scale with the age of the child. Hazel can set the table. It just warms my heart. It's such a simple thing, but she can do that. You saw the children at the beginning of the video also taking off their shoes and putting on their shoes. They put on their own coats. In my classroom, the children clean up a spill when they spill it. They can just take care of themselves and they can take care of their classroom. If they make a mess with paint, then they know how to clean it up. We have a young girl here taking care of the plants in our classroom. That's a completely appropriate thing for a 3-year-old to do. In my elementary classrooms, children are planning field trips, right? So they're choosing a recipe from a book and they're figuring out what ingredients they need and they're calling chaperones for transportation and they're setting a budget. Like that's appropriate for an 8-year-old. An 8-year-old can do that. So we create these opportunities for them to really learn things for their real life that they're really going to live. We want them to earn that genuine self-esteem and confidence in their abilities. When they know they can do well, then they're not afraid of the world. They're not going to be timid. They're going to be able to say, I can do that. I've done something just like that. This is only a little bit harder than what I've done before. And they can do it. Our classrooms are going to have mastery assessment. Assessments are done by the teacher informally and often. I am assessing my students all the time to see if they're ready for the next lesson. That's how you know you've passed. You get the next lesson. If a child's ready to move on, they do. If not, we just do it again. And that's fine because every child's moving at their own pace. Having one child spend extra time is not going to detract from somebody else. Having a child move forward faster is not going to detract from somebody else. It's the default is individualization. In contrast to the external discipline, we're working very hard to develop self-discipline. We want them to motivate and master themselves. It takes a long time. Some children it's faster and some children it's slower, but this is our goal that we're always working towards. So, for example, we have real breakable glass in our classroom. We have cups. If a child is not walking, no matter how many times we say, please walk, and they break a glass, they have learned the real world consequence of not walking in the classroom. We clean it up. It's fine. But that lesson of the broken glass is going to teach them much better than me saying, don't run for the billionth time. And over time, they internalize these things and they learn for themselves. I have to control my body when I'm in the classroom or I'm going to break things. It starts there and it moves into more, abstract realms as well. I have to do this classwork or I'm not going to be ready for the next lesson. So I have to get it done. And then our classrooms, we also explicitly teach grace and courtesy lessons. So these are manners, cultural norms, conflict resolution. Last week, one of my students had a birthday, and birthdays are very exciting for 3-year-olds. So I had one little boy who was jumping up and down saying, "Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday." And the girl whose birthday it was not comfortable by this. This was like way too much for her. So we had a little grace and courtesy lesson. I told him, you can tell her happy birthday, but just once. And then I told her, and you can say thank you. It's that simple, but they didn't know that before. He was excited about her birthday. He jumped up and down. He, expressed himself, and she felt uncomfortable. So this small thing, you can say happy birthday and you can say thank you, made the rest of the day go a lot smoother for everybody. And she didn't feel as on the spot. She didn't feel as uncomfortable. She knew what to say. And he was a little less enthusiastic towards her in a way that made her uncomfortable. And that's just a small example of things we do all the time. And it's beautiful. The last bit is just about our school. I'm not entirely sure where my guests are from, but I want to let you know. My school is on the eastern shore of Virginia. We're at T's Corner, which is right for the turnoff for NASA, Virginia Space, and Wallops Island. We're a fully independent school. We're enrolling. And if you'd like, I'll drop the link for a tour in the chat. And that's everything that I had planned to tell you. And the rest of this is just Q&A time. What do you want to know? What did I not explain? What did I explain too quickly? Help me help you. Hazel was 2.5. The work that Hazel had done in that video is also what I like to call a point of arrival. I'm not exactly sure when Hazel entered the class she was in, but it wasn't yesterday. She worked with the teachers over a long time to learn those skills, right? She got a lesson on how to lay out a tablecloth. She got a lesson on how to carry the bowls without breaking them. She got a lesson on how to fold the napkins. She got a lesson on how to pour the water from the pitcher to the carafe. Is that how you say that? That was a culmination of a lot of effort from Hazel. And it was all hers. She did that. I get so choked up when I think about her. I love her so much. I've never met her. That video is 11 years old. So that would mean Hazel is at least middle school, an adolescent. What kind of life does she have with that beautiful start? Even if the very next year she went to a conventional school, they can't take that away from her, that she can set the table. And even more than she can set the table, what that's done for her soul. The quote at the end of the video, that was, "Never help a child with a task in which he thinks he can succeed." I think that's how it goes. That's one of the really important things that we do in our classrooms as a teacher. I will present to a child how to do flower arranging. Flower arranging is actually a very complicated lesson in our classroom. It has over 50 steps. There's 2 trays, a bucket, and the vases that have to happen. It's one of the most complicated lessons we have in our practical life curriculum. I present these lessons. I'm very precise. I try to do it exactly the same every single time. And then I let, these small children, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, do the work. And they will get it wrong. They will absolutely get it wrong. They're going to miss, more than half of the steps. They're going to spill water on the floor. They're probably going to, cut the flower all the way up to the bud. You're supposed to leave a stem so it can fit in the vase, and they usually cut it right up to the head of the flower, so the flower is going to die by like tomorrow. And I sit on my hands and I let them do it. It's really easy to watch Hazel set the table when she's mastered it. That was beautiful. It's much harder to sit on your hands when they haven't mastered it. I'll give the lesson in the future, but I don't correct them in that moment, because in that moment, my 4-year-old is flower arranging. She's doing it, and she's happy and she feels successful. If I come in that moment and I say, "Oh, you have to cut it a little longer," then I've taken something from her. I've taken like a moment of confidence from her when she thought she was doing it right. And now I've just like burst that bubble. And then she might not try again. She might say, "Oh, actually, I don't know how to do that, and I'm not going to try again." So I don't interrupt and I don't help in that moment because she thinks she can succeed. The next day, I say, I would love to show you flower arranging again. And then I really make a show and I emphasize the stem length, the part that I saw that she was not getting correctly. And she says, oh, okay, yeah, I can do it this time, in her, in the mental way that a 3-year-old and 4-year-old would say that. It's a hallmark of a good Montessori teacher, and it's one of the hardest parts, maybe it's the hardest part, to not help when the child feels that they can be successful. Yeah. What do your parents tell you they see from their children? Do parents see changes? Yeah. So in my classroom, I'm working on these practical life activities with new children. This is when the biggest change happens. I'm teaching them to put on their coat. I'm teaching them to put on their shoes. I'm teaching them to serve their own snack. Very fundamental practical life skills. And these skills transfer to their home. So all of a sudden, the 3-year-old says, I can put on my own shoes. I don't need it. I can do it. That's like a big change for adults. And then there are more subtle things too about that confidence. So I have a 4-year-old in my class who needed a lot of growth in practical life skills. He had hands that weren't very well developed and he couldn't use them very well. So he would try and grab things and he would kind of grab things, everything like this. So he's having a really, really hard time. We did a lot of practice. We did a lot of work. I presented a lot of opportunities for him to actually develop that pincer grip so he could use his thumb. And he started to be more successful. And it was in really small places, really small things. He could hold the spoon correctly without it he would hold it with his pinky and he would do it like this. And that was not successful. That was not helping him. He wasn't very good at it. He couldn't open his lunch containers. We worked on these skills. I showed him daily how to open his cheese stick and how to put the straw from the juice box in the little foil punch. He got better at it. And his whole personality started coming out. He went from a very inside himself, he didn't want to come out. He was not confident, to really expanding. He became a more confident person. He became friendlier. He wanted to play with the other children more. He, wouldn't sort of cringe up when I offered to do something new with him. Would you like a lesson? No. And he would say, okay. And he would come and he would do them and he was becoming more successful. It's so subtle. But it changed his life, his little 4-year-old life. He went from someone who everything was done to him. Coats were put on him. Food was given to him. Shoes were put on him, to someone who puts on his coat, who puts on his shoes, who gets his own food. And that's a big change. That's a big change. And parents, they see it too. Piyush, is that how I say your name? Try my best. We have a lot of Montessori preschools for toddlers around Southern California. How to judge whether they're following actual Montessori practices, what are things to look for, and questions to ask during the tour. Okay, this is a good one. The things you're going to want to look for are, you're going to want teachers who are Montessori trained, least MACD accredited. So if they have something that is not MACD accredited, it is not real Montessori training. There are a few popular ones that are not real. NAMC, not real. MACD is the accrediting agency that certifies whether a Montessori training program is legit. So AMI and AMS are both MACD accredited. AMI and AMS have additional requirements beyond MACD accreditation. So you're going to want to look for teachers who are trained. If a school says that they are Montessori inspired, then they're not Montessori. Real Montessori schools never say that they are inspired. There might be a small asterisk in some states, because I think in some states you're not allowed to call yourself a Montessori school, but Southern California is not one of them, or California is not one of them. I think it's Maryland. So red flag is if you say you're Montessori inspired. When you visit the Montessori class, you're going to want to ask them, what does the schedule look like? For toddlers, if you're talking about before primary, if you're talking about children before the age of 3 to 6, I'm not exactly sure what their work period is in the morning. I think it's like 2 hours. But for the 3 to 6 range, they need to have a 3-hour work period in the morning. Okay. The 3-hour work period. So the 3-hour uninterrupted work period. That means that they don't regularly pull children out for art classes, music classes, PE. They don't pull the children out for foreign language. They don't pull them out for yoga, not regularly. So if there's like once in a blue moon, we're going to have, you know, the zoo come bring their snakes, that's fine. That's fine. But if it's every Monday at, 10 o'clock, we have art class, then they're compromising. It has to be uninterrupted. What are the other things that I would definitely be looking for? With the exception of the very beginning of the year, and I'm talking like the first month or less, you should not see conventional toys on the shelves. So you shouldn't see regular building blocks. You shouldn't see Legos. You shouldn't see anything with batteries that light up. So you should not see those things, with the exception of the first month of school. And that's because in the first month of school, it's common practice and recommended practice that you bring in things that the children already know how to do. They already know how to build with Legos. They already know how to do sort of picture puzzles. So you can have those in there as a bridge to connecting them to the genuine Montessori materials. A Montessori classroom will have the full range of Montessori materials, but if you're a parent, you may not know what that looks like. So that's helpful for me, but that's not helpful for you. Oh, mixed age classrooms. If like in the kindergarten year, they go somewhere else, then they're not implementing Montessori authentically, because you need the three years. Some states and their regulations make this really challenging, but in California, I know a bit about the California regulations. In California, you can still have the full 3-year age range. So if someone at the school has MACD accredited training, but it's not AMS and it's not AMI, I actually wouldn't be too worried about that, because it's still accredited training. If they took like a 1-hour certificate course, then it's not real training. Some schools are very proud of their AMI or AMS affiliation. But I think you still need to look at the schools, even if they're affiliated. That can be a good shorthand, but I wouldn't write off every school that doesn't have AMS or AMI accreditation. AMI accreditation is extraordinarily hard and extraordinarily expensive. So if they have it, they've done like a great job, and you should highly consider them. That would sort of be great. But there are plenty of really good schools that do not have AMI accreditation because it's extraordinarily expensive and extraordinarily difficult. All of the teachers have to have AMI training, which is about $16,000, and you have to take it in person, and it's a 1-year program. So if you live, in a rural area, nowhere near a city, there are no training centers near you. You have to move to the city for an entire year and pay $16,000, top of already having education, because, for example, to be an elementary teacher, you have to have a bachelor's degree in anything, but you have to have a bachelor's degree before you can even take the training. So you have to have a bachelor's degree, and then you're taking, $16,000 training that, isn't covered by most financial aid in a city. So that's just to get the AMI training as a teacher. I think it's great training. I think it's valuable. I think it's prohibitive for a lot of people who would want it. And then for your school to be accredited from AMI, every single one of your teachers has to be AMI trained. So if you have one teacher who is AMS trained or just accredited, your school can't get that accreditation. I don't think that makes you a bad school. I think that it says something else. I don't think it says you're a bad school. I think it says something else. And then you also have to buy all of your materials from the one authorized material manufacturer in Nienhuis, which is, wouldn't you know it, the most expensive material manufacturer. Their things used to be made in Holland, and they're just prohibitive. It's $50,000 to outfit a single classroom, not including furniture. So that was all to say, I like AMI, but don't write off a school just because they're not AMI. But if someone does have AMI, go look at them.
I found the discussion of your student who, made all that progress with his own capability, and how that brought his, gave him some confidence. I thought that was a really powerful story. And I think in connection to, what we saw with Hazel Sets the Table. Yeah, I liked what I was learning there. I think it helped me get a better understanding of sort of what, I don't think typical daycares deliver that. I know I certainly didn't get that when I was a kid. So I found those sorts of stories to be really helpful to kind of understand what you're about.
Thank you. I think if that's all, then I think I'm done. Have a lovely rest of your Saturday.